Hi, I'm your host, Erica Polsinelli, and welcome to Evolve by Erica, the podcast, where we talk all things spirituality, ascension, health, wellness, and beyond. I'm so excited that you are here. Come on in. Hello, guys, and welcome to another solo episode. I'm so excited to be here. It's been a while. I love coming in and being nice and warm and filming a few solo episodes together. And then some time goes by until I come in the next time. And it just feels so good every time to be back here and to connect with you. And also to hear any questions or topics that you want me to cover in our podcast episodes, because I feel like this is really a time for us to chat intimately. And I'm so excited because today is going to be about something that few people have asked me to speak of, and it was my experience with health anxiety and what helped me through my experience. So, believe it or not, my whole journey started as an experiment. And I came to the realization that I was living a very anxious life, and it occurred to me that other people weren't living that way. And I just saw this major disparity between the way I was living and how my husband, fiance, or boyfriend at the time was living, and how other friends were living as well. And I just started to recognize this really it was like this monster in the room with me throughout my life. No matter where I went, whether I was home, whether I was out, this monster was with me 24/7. And it was these constant thoughts of fear, paranoia, and really, I think really fear. Always fearing that like something was wrong or something was going to be wrong, etc. And once I started to recognize that other people weren't living this way, that showed me my power, because if it's possible within them, I realized it must be possible within me. And from there, I just started to see the difference between the thoughts I was having throughout my day versus the thoughts that other people were having. And I kind of think of that meme, you may have seen it. It's like mindfulness, and it shows the human, and it's like mindful, and their mind is full of all these thoughts. And then a dog, and it's like mindful, and it's just like being completely present in the moment. And I was so far from that. So, I want to take this opportunity in this episode to really step you through the details of my journey with health anxiety and what I did that really supported me to overcome it. And of course, this is just my experience, and you can take what inspires you and use all the other resources you have as well. But I'm really just specifically talking from my experience, sharing with you what helped me in my journey. So, I realized I had anxiety most of my life, and I started later on in my meditation journey. I was able to pinpoint where and when this started. And that's because our meditation practice helps us to really uncover so much of our patterns and start to become the observer and be able to see them for what they are. And that's independent from who we are. So as I started my meditation journey, I came to the conclusion that I started to worry about my health and other people in my life because I observed other family members who worried, and nothing was ever wrong. Like nothing ever came of their worries. So to me, as a young Erica, I internalized that as if I worry, nothing's going to happen, because I've seen it with other people. They worry about nonsense. It never happens. And maybe if I worry about something, it's kind of like the opposite of law of attraction. Like if I worried about things, it actually wouldn't come true. This is a belief I picked up by observing people in my life and in my family. So that, and again, I didn't recognize this when I was ready to make a change. This was after years of work that I discovered this and was able to go back and heal that part of me. But just to give you the context, I picked up this habit or pattern or belief, and it started to take on a life of its own. So from there, like I said, most of my days were just completely consumed in thoughts of fear of um, what if to the umpth degree. And every single day, I would be coming up with a new problem that I had. And I would call my mom and I would tell her, I would tell Vinny, and it grew to such an extent where it was hard for me to not recognize how out of control this was getting. That's how out of control it was. Like yesterday I had this, today I have this, tomorrow I'm going to have something completely different. And I would realize what triggered me as well. I would love the conversations of hearing these stories that are like really scary stories that happen to people. And then after listening to a story, that was it. Like all of a sudden I had that symptom or I had that experience and I took it on. And um, after days and days and weeks and months and even years of coming up with these different scenarios, made up scenarios, I started to recognize, okay, I have a problem and I need help. I need to find the help and the support in order to fix this because I'm literally wasting my life and my energy thinking of all the things that I do not wish to come into fruition when I can be actually actively using my energy to bring forth a life that I want to live. I was in this freeze state. How do you create from a space when you're riddled with fear and you're anticipating the worst? You can't. So it was really this turning point for me. And I have this friend, Helen, who she was working with manifestation and she was doing energy work for years with her healer. And she would tell me a little bit about it. But then I became really interested in it. And she was that person that like we had a conversation and she was talking about manifesting all the things she wants to bring into her life. And in that moment, that was the person that had me realize like, whoa, you're using your days, your moments to create. And I'm using mine to literally like destroy my own self. And from there, I started to get more curious about the work that she was doing and the work that some other people were doing as well. So she actually introduced me to my friend Victoria Mann, who many of you know. She's come on Evolve before. She's been on the podcast. She's a really close friend to me. And when like right before I met her, I started opening up to spirituality and thinking like there must be something else outside of ourselves, something greater than what we can see in the 3D, than what meets the eye. And I started to, at this time, I moved to the beach, which was really healing for my body, my soul, my nervous system. And I went plant-based at the time. I completely changed my diet. And I did that because at the time there was all of this information, and there still is, about how alkalining a plant-based diet can be and how healing it could be. But I feel like at that time there was like a lot. I mean, if you were digging into some of this research, you were able to find like these pretty incredible stories of what was happening to people who were going plant-based. And I had a very dear friend who healed himself. He attributes to going plant-based. So I was like, okay, if I'm worried about my health, why not do the healthiest thing for myself? And at the time, I felt like that was becoming plant-based, and that's what I did. And by no means am I suggesting any of this for anyone. It's just, again, sharing my experience because at the end of the day, it's our intuition that needs to guide all of us and that wisdom within. So I became plant-based. My body started to physically lighten and awaken and become activated. Living by the ocean, visiting the water each day, sitting near the ocean, listening to the waves, looking at the sky, these all had a profound effect on my nervous system. So it started to open me up to this idea that maybe there is something to positive thinking, the law of attraction. And And that's when I started to meet, I started meeting with and hanging out with my friend Victoria at the time. We were newly friends, and she has been practicing so much of what we're seeing now years ago when she had her awakening. And the thing she would say was like truth to my soul, but no one else was really talking about it. And at the time, it's what Erica, my truth, knew to be true, how much power we did have over our thoughts, because I always did believe in that. I was tapped into like The Secret. I watched The Secret back when I was in high school. I was always open to this, and always open to things that weren't part of mainstream, like these like other societies and whatever was being talked about that wasn't like yet accepted by the mainstream. So when she started to share some things with me, or when I started to tell her things I was experiencing, she would have a name for them. She would make sense of it and she would validate it. And I was like, wow. So like some of these things I believed, she thinks is true. And once you have that momentum around something, you're like, maybe this can be true, and maybe I can completely transform my life through my thoughts by taking the power back over my thoughts. So I started this experiment where I was like, okay, from now on, I am going to, every single time one of these scary negative thoughts that put me in a freeze and fearful state comes in, I'm going to minimize it by saying, this is part of my imagination. And if I'm going to use my energy to imagine, I'm going to imagine something that's going to help me feel good right here, right now, and potentially help me to manifest what I want for the future. And that's what I started to do. So anytime one of these thoughts would come in, I would stop it and I would engage in a more positive, conscious thought of what I wanted. So if it was like, I feel this, I must have this, it was like, I am healthy and I'm bringing my awareness to the energy of health and vitality, or whatever it may be, and just having those mantras on hand. I am in perfect health. I'm constantly, with every breath, I'm coming into perfect health, whatever it was I needed. And at the time, I was also listening to a lot of high frequency content. So I listened to Esther Hicks a ton, Abraham Hicks. I was reading Deepak Chopra's books. I was just infusing myself with these thoughts and beliefs that my truth knew to be true, but my mind and the quote unquote reality I was living wasn't widely accepting this as truth. There was like a whisper within me that felt this was true, but it wasn't something that I truly embodied and trusted was completely true. But I infused myself throughout the day. I was listening to audiobooks while I was cooking and whatever it was. So all of these things started to help shift my frequency. And from there, I started to practice Kundalini, and that's when the rest of the huge shift started to take place. Because when we practice, we're oxygenating our system and we're elevating and increasing our frequency. And we come into this space of oneness where we come outside of ourselves. It's not about Erica anymore. It's about like this universal energy, this source energy, this divine energy that I connect to in my meditations. And in those pockets of when I reached that state, I felt absolute peace. And I felt unity within myself. It was no longer my head working against my heart. It was everything working together in one. And these moments would be brief because I was still, a novice meditator. I was just starting. But the more moments I had in this space, the safer my body and mind started to feel in this human experience. And I really started to ground in to this reality. And while practicing breath work and activating my body, my cells with the mantra, I started to completely feel different and shift. And with that, every single breath that I take is now stronger and deeper because of the practice. So I'm able to receive more because of the practice, and that's held throughout the day. So it was like this combination of, and I've spoken about this before, this like manual redirection of my thoughts. And when I tell you I was doing this all day, literally I was doing this all day long. The thought would come in, I would stop it, I would reframe it. And it took work and it took awareness, because how many times are we on autopilot and so unaware of what we're even thinking in the moment? And the practice helps us to increase that awareness so that we can stay aware, we can stay the observer, and we could say, okay, nope, that's not happening. And I'm bringing this thought in. So it took a combination of all these things. But I remember saying, if all of this is just an experiment, it was a win-win for me because I would end up feeling better. That was guaranteed. If I was no longer thinking these fearful thoughts and switching them to positive thoughts, the body would start what we think the body thinks it's experiencing. It's as if we're actually experiencing it. So when I was thinking the thoughts of fear, my body felt like those were real and I was in a state of fight or flight. When I was thinking the positive thoughts, my nervous system felt safe and I felt safe. So in that moment, I was creating a better reality in the here and now for myself. And I said, if that's all I'm doing, I'm still winning. Because if I'm creating a better present moment, you're guaranteed to actually create a better future moment, because we create the future in the present. And if we feel good in the present, if we feel calm, if we feel grounded, we're able to shift into the future we want because we're less reactive. We're more positive. We feel better. We're making choices from a calmer, more grounded, trusted space. So it was a win-win. That was it. And that's all I knew. And after experimenting with this, I'm so grateful to say that, I think in the world that we live in, there's always moments that can be more anxious than others, but I'm so grateful that I'm able to have the tools that help me to move through my day without these crippling thoughts that really kept me so small and stuck in my personal development. And now I'm using my thoughts and my experience and all the things I've learned to really create the reality I want. So I think it's a combination of, to break it down, it's observing, being the observer of your thoughts, being able to observe what's coming in and be conscious of it, and then choosing the thoughts that you want to have. I think it's also shifting your frequency any way you can. So different ways of shifting our frequency can be through movement. It could be through nature, could be through meditation, can be just by spending time with people that really fill you up and help you tap into the you that you're meant to be and you on a soul level. The things that you're eating, the things that you're listening to, all of these things affect your frequency. So how right now can you shift your frequency? What habits might you have right now that are not serving you, but possibly making you a bit more anxious? Like, I knew one of my habits was listening to these stories. Like, soon as I heard someone wasn't well or whatever, I would listen knowing how it was going to make me feel, but I couldn't help it. It's like something you don't want to watch, but you have to watch it. That's how I felt in those moments. And I quickly learned, no, Erica, those are not serving you. You're not asking follow-up questions. You're not asking for symptoms. You're not asking for this. I knew that wasn't serving me, but it takes a level of awareness. And that awareness comes from our meditation practice. And just by saying, I'm going to be aware of my thoughts and staying on top of it. So it's about shifting those thoughts. It's about elevating your frequency. And it's about having a pocket full of tools that can really support you throughout the day as it pops up. Knowing what triggers this and knowing what you can do instead to help you come back to your baseline in that calm space. I always had to have a mantra on hand that I would flip the script. Something would come in, that loop would play out, and I would say, no, this is a loop that always comes in. I'm prepared for you. I'm flipping the script. This is what I want to think. This is how I want to feel. And I would bring that into my body. And after enough repetition, for me, it really did support me in thinking differently, because we start to create these new neural pathways. Our mind gets very used to thinking the thoughts that we've always thought, especially by the age of 36. So up until then, we can really rewire a lot more. It's still hard no matter what age we are, but as we get older and as we get closer to 36, it gets a little bit more challenging to rewire. So it's really important to have that on hand, that mantra on hand, to build that new neural pathway. And the more you say it, the more you feel it, the more you start to actually believe it. The meditations, the breath work, the mantras, all were so super helpful because they actually activate so much of our brain that we're not utilizing. And it helps us to expand within ourselves and be capable of perceiving life differently and be capable of new thoughts, literally increasing our intelligence and being able to shift our new thoughts into something that we've never had before. Guys, the known is so much easier than the unknown. And the ways we have always done things is easier than carving out and bridging this new path. But it's not worth it to always stay in the known. It's very worth it to venture out and start to pave this new path and be able to create this new reality and this new experience. But it takes a lot of energy and focus and commitment, and it's something that you truly need to commit to. Some other things that I would practice is first thing in the morning when I was in my meditation, literally out of my bed into my meditation spot, I would tune in and just think thoughts of gratitude, because that would take me out of a space of lack, thinking that something was wrong or I didn't have something, and infuse this energy of gratitude, health, vitality into my body. With every single breath I took in, I thought of it contributing to the health, and with every exhale out, releasing, detoxifying, letting go of whatever needed to go. So having something on hand, the thoughts that you're going to infuse yourself with first thing in the morning is super essential, because that's when we dip into our subconscious. So when we meditate before the sunrise, we're closer to that dream-like state. Our brainwaves are slower. We're able to go into that deep subconscious work. And that's where a lot of our energy can move. And it was so helpful that I was working a job. At the time I was teaching, I had to be up super early in order to get my meditation in. So I had no choice but to be up before sunrise and to be doing this really intense healing work. And that time of the day just supports us that much more. So even if you don't have something to get to during the day, if you wake up before the sunrise, it is wild how different you'll feel throughout the day. But it will also accelerate what your meditation practices can do for you, because the time of the day is supporting you to go deep into that subconscious work, and your physical state, you're in that dreamlike state that will help you. In addition to that, the meditations and the breath work help to distract your thinking mind and allows you to go into the subconscious and start to clear and gain the awareness and start to realize your own patterns, becoming that observer of yourself. So I wanted to share my story. I also wanted to share some things that worked for me, because it could work for you, but it could possibly work for you. But always, always follow your intuition. Think about what you need. Just because this was my journey doesn't mean that yours will be exactly the same. But I'm so happy to share what has worked for me as an inspiration and hope. I know that when we're in these places of anxiety or darkness or whatever it may feel like, it kind of feels like we'll never get on the other side of it. And every single day, we truly have the opportunity to create our future with our thoughts and with our energy. And you need to believe how powerful you really are and that you are capable of doing that. You have energy within you that wants to be unlocked, and you are worthy of living your happiest, healthiest, most divine, aligned life. So, knowing how powerful your energy is, knowing how powerful the thoughts are that you tell yourself, you have to wake up as your biggest cheerleader, say, shout, cheer the things, the thoughts that you want to hold and embody for the day, and start on that note and just see how different you might feel throughout your day. I know everyone's journey is different, and I know everyone with anxiety feels it and experiences it in a different way. So again, this is my experience, but I hope that you enjoyed hearing about my journey, and hopefully it can inspire a new thought, a new frequency on your journey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.